Welcome to John's Maths book. In this video, we're going to be looking at cube roots and finding the cube root of a number. First, let's look at what symbols are used to denote cube roots. So here's an example. We're looking at the cube root of 8. So as you can see, the cube root of 8 looks like a giant tick over the 8 with a small 3 in the top left-hand corner. So how do we work out the cube root of 8? We ask what number, when multiplied by itself 3 times, gives us 8. So let's look at some multiples of numbers to see if we can get that value of 8. So if we look at 1 when multiplied by itself 3 times, it gives us 1 times 1 times 1, and all that is equal to 1. If we look at 2 when multiplied by itself 3 times, we get 2 times 2 times 2, and that gives us 8. So in this case, the cube root of 8 is equal to 2. Let's take another example. Let's look at the cube root of 27. So again, we ask what number, when multiplied by itself 3 times, gives us 27. So let's look at some more multiples. Now we've looked at 1 and 2. So if we look at the 3's, if we multiply 3 together 3 times, we get 3 times 3 times 3, which does in fact give us 27. So the cube root of 27 is 3. In the last couple of examples, we looked at cube roots of perfect cubes. So a perfect cube is the product of 3 identical numbers. So we can say 8, the value of 8, is equal to 2 times 2 times 2, which is the same as 2 cubed. So 8 is a perfect cube. So finding the cube root of a perfect cube is quite straightforward, as we only need to find the number that when multiplied by itself 3 times gives us the perfect cube. Another example of a cube root of a perfect cube is the cube root of 27. So 27 is equal to 3 times 3 times 3, which is equal to 3 cubed. So the cube root of 27 is in fact 3. Now let's look at cube roots of imperfect cubes. So what is the cube root of an imperfect cube? The cube root of an imperfect cube contains fractionals or decimals, but these can be simplified. So let's show that in an example. So let's look at the cube root of 54. So the cube root of 54 can be written as the cube root of 27 times 2. So this can be further simplified by saying that's the same as the cube root of 27 times the cube root of 2. Now we know that 27 is a perfect cube, and we know that the cube root of 27 is 3. So we can write this as, so the cube root of 27 is 3 multiplied by the cube root of 2. So as the cube root of 2 is a fractional decimal part, we'll leave it as that. So that gives us 3 cube root 2. When we looked at square roots, we found that every positive number has 2 square roots. Now we're going to show why every positive number has only 1 cubed root. And we can do that with looking at an example of the cube root of 27. So the cube root of 27 is 3 times 3 times 3, which is equal to 27. So the cube root is equal to 3. And when we looked at square roots, we multiplied the negative numbers together. So let's try that with cube roots. So we multiply 3 by minus 3 by minus 3. That gives us minus 27. Because minus and a minus make a plus, and then multiplying it by minus again takes it back to minus. So minus 3 cannot be a cube root of 27. So therefore, the only cube root of 27 is 3. For exercise number 1, find the cube root of 125. Pause the video now and see if you can work out the answer. Well, hopefully you got the answer. So what we have to ask is what number, when multiplied by itself 3 times, gives us 125. So we can see that 5 times 5 times 5 gives us 125. So therefore, the cube root of 125 is equal to 5. For exercise number 2, find the cube root of 216. Pause the video now and see if you can work out the answer. So hopefully you got the answer. Now 216 is a perfect cube. So the numbers when multiplied together 3 times gives 216 is 6 times 6 times 6, which is equal to 216. So the cube root of 216 is in fact 6. For exercise 3, let's look at what the cube root of 24 is. Pause the video now and see if you can work out the answer. So hopefully you got the answer. First thing to note is 24 is not a perfect cube, it's an imperfect cube. But 24 can be written as 8 times 3. So let's rewrite this and say that the cube root of 24 is the cube root of 8 times 3. This can be written as the cube root of 8 times the cube root of 3. Now 8 is a perfect cube, and we know that the cube root of 8 is 2. So that makes 2 times the cube root of 3. So that's finally written as 2 cube root 3. So for exercise number 4, let's see if we can work out the cube root of 128. So cube root of 128. So pause the video now and see if you can work out the correct answer. So hopefully you got the correct answer. Now 128 is not a perfect cube, it's an imperfect cube. But 128 can be written as 64 times 2. So let's rewrite that as the cube root of 64 times 2. Now this can be written as the cube root of 64 times the cube root of 2. Now 64 is a perfect cube, because 64 is the same as 4 times 4 times 4. So the cube root of 64 is 4. So we can write that as 4 multiplied by the cube root of 2, which is 4 cube root 2. So that concludes the video on cube roots. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did like the video, then please share, like, and subscribe.